summer, and that means that most of us have some more time on our hands. And that means it is the perfect time to read. On vacation, I like to spend as much of my time reading as I possibly can. To give you some reading inspiration, I thought today I could share the 5 books with you that totally changed my life. At least kind of. The first book is I Didn't Do the Thing Today by Madeline Dorr. And yes, I actually brought this on vacation with me for this video. But it talks about our never-ending to-do lists and the fact that there's always more to be done, and about the stuff that we keep putting off all the time, and that often is the most important stuff because we get so caught up in that doing those things that are on our to-do list. She uses a lot of stories and anecdotes from podcasts and blog posts as she did it over the year, and I must admit that does tend to get a little bit repetitive after a while, but she made me realize that productivity is not the goal, that it is actually just a tool to get to live the life that you actually want to live, which you all know is a very core value of the Studio I YouTube channel. I do feel that it almost calls for you to not be an ambitious person, and that is something that I do not really resonate with in this book. Filming outside is just a bit of a challenge here. I don't think it's bad to hold yourself to a high standard and to want to achieve a lot in life. But what I do resonate with this book is the way how you can achieve that, and that you can do it in a more gentle way while implementing joy into your life. And that is something that I think that everybody will learn from this book. The next book that I want to recommend, and that actually really changed my life, is You Coach You. And it is a book that is mainly focused on career development, but I do feel like it applies to a lot of other parts of life as well. We can't only improve ourselves in our career, we can improve ourselves in life in general. This talks more about corporate life, but as a freelancer, you can also get a lot out of this book. It is one of the most actionable self-help books that I have ever read. It is full with exercises and tips and questions and things to really actually work on and improve yourself with. That makes it such a great book in my opinion. It one-handedly almost dragged me out of my burnout by realizing how I could take a more holistic approach to life, to productivity, to work. And it's also a very, very nice book to keep on going back to when you're stuck on a certain area of your life, because it consists of 8 topics and you don't necessarily need to read all of them. You can really go and look at what you need from the book. There's even like a page in the beginning that tells you if you're struggling with this, then read this chapter and then that chapter after. And I love that this book actually admits that you don't need to read everything and that you can take what you need from the book, because I feel like a lot of self-help books are like totally filled with a lot of fluff because they want you to read as many pages as possible. Well, this just actually admits you might not need all of this, so just take what you need and go on with your life. And I love that about this book. From the next book, I don't have a physical copy because I listened to it on audiobook, and it is The Mountain Is You. The Mountain Is You is a book that I refer back to often. For me, it made me realize how deeply rooted self-sabotage actually is. That it is not just laziness or having to adapt here and there, but that it goes really, really deep to your core, because you have 2 conflicting desires, and that one desire might be so unconscious and so deep within your brain that you don't even realize that it is there. And that helped me to really reevaluate life and to really look at it in a different way, that I wasn't just a lazy or unproductive person, but that there were parts of myself that I was trying to keep safe no matter what, which then led to me not being able to progress as much in life as I actually wanted. It is a bit fluffy. I do have to warn you about that. It is one of those books that could have been at least 100 pages shorter. Especially the last chapters of the book do get a little bit too fluffy, Instagram quotey for me personally, but the first, I think, 3 or 4 chapters are mind-blowing, and I listen to them again and again and again. The next book is You Are a Badass at Making Money. It has been a long time since I read this book, and I don't know if I would necessarily pick it up today, but back then it really did change my life. I grew up in a lower middle class. Like, I wouldn't say that I was poor whatsoever, but we also didn't have extra money to spend. And with that also came the idea that my parents installed upon me that money is this dirty thing and that it is a bad thing and that people who have money are evil and bad people. And this book was the beginning of changing that perspective for me. I remember that I listened to this as an audiobook while I was on the train to my supermarket job while I was working at university. I was often up at 4:30 in the morning and going to work, and I was listening to this book. And I remember slowly, chapter by chapter, that I started to realize that having money and making money isn't a bad thing. I remember doubting if I would ever be successful in life and if I would ever have financial security. And as cheesy as it may sound, this book actually made me realize that I could be and that I could do that. And it is there on that train at 4:30 in the morning that I decided that I was gonna build a dream life for myself. And I don't think that I still agree with everything that is said in this book. She talked about investing a lot of money that kind of seems quite sketchy, to be honest. And I think if I wanted to learn more about the financial topics today, I would pick up different books like The Psychology of Money or Let's Talk Money. But that mindset and that motivational aspect of this book, I will remember forever. And then the last book is How to Get Paid for What You Know. I also have this on audiobook instead of a physical copy, luckily, because otherwise I would have to take in way too many books in my suitcase, and it's heavy enough as it is. How to Get Paid for What You Know is the second book that pulled me out of my burnout, because it convinced me that this YouTube thing was something that I could actually do and that I could actually achieve. It's nothing revolutionary, the book, but it did convince me to go after a creative career and to go after YouTube. If you already work in marketing, I think there's a lot of topics in this book that you actually already know. But if you don't, this book might be revolutionary for you. If you are thinking about a passive income career, or to start a YouTube channel or a blog or a podcast, whatever it is, I would highly recommend reading this book because it gives such actionable tips and tricks and really a step-by-step guide as to how to set up a career like this. Do you need to read self-help books? I love me a good self-help book, but that doesn't mean that you need to read them too. I think that YouTube videos, podcasts, they're all just as valuable as reading self-help books if that is what you prefer. What I do think is important is that you get your information from different sources. No self-help book, podcast, or YouTube video is the holy grail. They only offer one perspective. So you really gotta take in as many pieces of content on this topic as you possibly can to make sure that you get a whole picture. And just reading the book or listening to the piece of content isn't enough either. You really have to actively think of how you're going to apply these things into your life. So when you're done by reading the book, go through it and actually write down the steps on how you want to implement these things into your life. When I'm reading self-help books, I actually indicate the parts, I annotate these books, and then I pick and choose from these things what I actually want to implement in my life. Otherwise, the information will just sit in your head, but if you don't apply the change, the book won't actually be helpful. If you're looking for more self-help content, you can check out this playlist, and otherwise I will see you again soon. Toodaloo!